In today's video, I am answering one of your questions. Apparently one of you guys has been wanting to buy Tiziana Terenzi's Arrakis, this one right here, but you were trying to find out if and how it compares to Naxos from the house of XERJOFF. Do these compare? Do they smell similar? Well, in this video, I'm going to let you know how they are similar and how they are not similar, coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian with Smelling Great Fragrance Reviews. Yes, I am answering one of your questions today. These are both tobacco fragrances, but how similar are they? Do they smell alike? I'll let you know, but before I do, if this is your first time tuning into the channel and you still haven't subscribed, please do click the subscribe button below and also click the bell so that you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. Before I read the email that I received, how many of you have compared these two fragrances? Do you find similarities? Let me know, put a comment down so I can find out. But don't stop there. If you have this fragrance or you're a fan of it, let me know. Or if you have Naxos and you're a fan of it, let me know. This is Arakis, by the way, which came out in 2019. So here's the email. Hi Sebastian, first of all, I love your channel. You take your passion very seriously. Could you review Tiziana Terenzi Arrakis or do a comparison between Naxos and Arrakis? I'm really interested in Arrakis, but I'd like to know more about it before buying it. You are the best. Thank you, Andre. So I reviewed Arrakis last year along with a few other Tiziana Terenzi fragrances, but as I'm testing it more and more and more, and I was comparing it with Naxos, they weren't really reminding me of one another whatsoever. The only similarities between the two fragrances are that they feature tobacco, and it pretty much stops there. But let me tell you about Arakis. This is a 2019 launch. It's considered a woody, spicy, or amber woody fragrance. Perfumer is Paolo Terenzi. 100 ml bottle is $450. It's Extrait De Parfum concentration. Definitely is very, very intense, and a little goes a long way with this one. Tiny, tiny amount. For notes here in Tiziana Terenzi's Arrakis, you have citruses, saffron, Osmanthus, spices for top notes, vetiver, tobacco, patchouli, Guaiac wood for heart notes, Tonka beans, amber, musk for base notes. Lots of notes there. And you know what? This one is definitely tobacco heavy and also spice heavy. You definitely experience the tobacco. And for me, when I was wearing this one, it dries down to an ashy tobacco, like you've smoked cigarettes or maybe even pipe, and you can smell the burning ashiness with this fragrance. But for me, it doesn't remind me of this whatsoever. This actually reminds me of Pure Havane from Mugler, but this is a much better creation of that kind of a fragrance. For me, I like this one more than Pure Havane, although I enjoy Pure Havane a lot. Pure Havane for me goes more honeyed. This actually has more of like almost like a fougere, like a barbershop kind of an experience, because there is a very prominent lavender note in here. This particular fragrance does not have any honey in it, but you know what? It wears honey-like in the end. There is kind of like lots of sweetness in here, and it definitely wears like there is honey in there, even though we're not experiencing it. But you know, the Osmanthus note is in here as well, and Osmanthus has a sweet fruitiness. Yes, you do pick that up in here as well. But again, these are nothing alike. I will tell you, this fragrance will remind you of two other fragrances though, and those two fragrances are Carlisle from Parfums de Marly, red tobacco from Mancera. If you're looking for alternatives of those two fragrances, definitely find it here. And when I was comparing them all side by side, I noticed that the Tiziana Terenzi Arrakis is the longest lasting of the three. Extremely intense, over the top intense, and just a little amount goes a very long way. And I think that's because of the concentration. The other three fragrances are Eau de Parfum, and I'm not going to compare this together anyway because they're completely different fragrances. It doesn't smell anything like Arakis, it doesn't smell anything like Carlisle, and it doesn't smell anything like Mancera. But I'm going to put it away because this can't be a comparison when they don't smell anything alike. And you might have a preference. I think if you are doing a comparison of the two and you have to decide between the two, I highly recommend you get samples of both and test them side by side, or go to a store that sells them both and test them side by side, because you'll see that they're nothing alike. So I'm going to put the XERJOFF away and come back to the Arakis in comparison to Carlisle and, of course, Red Tobacco. Now, the very first of the three I discovered was Carlisle, when Carlisle was an exclusive fragrance sold only at a few boutiques for Parfums de Marly. Then Red Tobacco launched, and I noticed that there were some similarities, although I find Mancera to be a lot rougher than Carlisle. Both of them are really, really long-lasting, extremely long-lasting. But as I said, Red Tobacco has a roughness about it. Almost like there's something animalic under there. Something dirty happens in there. This is a lot smoother, and I feel like here we have Guaiac wood, and the Guaiac wood adds a very, very smooth, kind of a polished, soft, creamy, woody experience. So between these two, I feel like, I don't want to say the better of the two is Carlisle. It's just a lot smoother to wear. But once we get to the Arakis has the roughness and also has the smoothness, because there's a major component of Guaiac wood in here, so it adds a very creamy, smooth, soft woods experience. But the tobacco is pretty rough, so it kind of is like a clash of Carlisle and Mancera's Red Tobacco, but a lot more intense and a lot more longer lasting, because I get that smoky ashiness here that I don't get in here. It's there. I mean, it totally dries down to this like burned ashy tobacco, which I kind of get here, but I get a lot more in Arakis. So it's a more intense smoky smoked tobacco experience where it goes amber woody, but with lots and lots of spices. Now they don't credit spices here. Now I'm picking up warm spices. I'm also getting, I can pick up things like cinnamon, perhaps nutmeg, also maybe coriander comes in here as well. Those kind of spices, and maybe even cardamom, because I think there's a little bit of that kind of cardamom-y touch in here as well. It's definitely here, and it's definitely prominent with the spices, but they don't credit spices except for the saffron. They just call it spices, but all those spices come in here. This, on the other hand, has fruitiness, and I believe there's apple note in here. They don't credit apples here, but they do credit that osmanthus, so it does add a little bit of like a apricot-y kind of peachy fruitiness in there, but it's not an over-the-top fruity experience. It's mostly about the tobacco in here and the Guaiac wood with the spices that are in here as well. I think it's a great fragrance. It's available in 3 different formats now, in Arakis, in Red Tobacco, in Carlisle. I highly recommend, if you're trying to decide between Arakis and the XERJOFF Naxos, that you test those out, and then also while you're at it, test these out as well, because out of the 4 you might prefer one or over the other, but definitely Tiziana Terenzi's Arrakis totally reminds me of Parfums de Marly's Carlisle and also Red Tobacco. So it might be redundant to have all 3 of those 3 fragrances, but between these two, you'll have to make the decision, because one will be better for you than the other. Again, going back to the XERJOFF definitely does remind me of Pure Havane, but I find Pure Havane to be more honeyed, no lavender. This has a very prominent lavender note and a very prominent tonka bean note. So because of those 2 notes, along with the tobacco, it does go into kind of like a warm fougere, amber fougere direction, which can make for a very, very unique experience. There is honey here, but it's not as honeyed as Pure Havane is. So they're completely different fragrances. Definitely different fragrances, depends on what kind of tobacco you like. That's what it's going to be the determining factor for you. But anyway, those are my thoughts between those 2 fragrances. Really do think these 3 definitely have similarities, and if you're judging between the 3, as I said, the longest lasting one and the most tobacco-ish one, and also the creamy one at the same time, is this one. And I feel like it's a both of these two fragrances together and more intense version, which is Arakis right here. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I hope that this answers your question of which one to buy. They're completely different fragrances. Sample before you jump on one, because this is a pretty pricey fragrance, $4.50 for 100 ml, but also it's very, very long lasting, extremely long lasting. A little goes a long way, and it can come off a little rough. I've heard from some folks, this is intense. Wait until you put your nose on this one. This one's even more intense than red tobacco. Anyway guys, thanks so much for watching today's video comparing Tiziana Terenzi's Arrakis to XERJOFF's Naxos, which are nothing alike, completely different fragrances. Only similarities is the fact that they have tobacco in them. Anyway, I hope that answers your question. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please let me know if you've compared all these three fragrances and what your thoughts are. Which one is your favorite? Other than that, please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.